What is a business glossary? Perhaps the answer to this question is obvious, but then I read an article or a LinkedIn post or a white paper, or watch a sales pitch or a webinar that talks about the business glossary, and he talks about it incorrectly. That's when I start pulling my own hair. These are some of the terms that we often encounter besides the business glossary, such as the business dictionary, data catalog, data dictionary, business lexicon, business metadata, metadata repository, business compendium, etc. And sometimes these are used interchangeably. Cueing the hair pulling here because they are not all synonyms. Let's cut to the chase and see what is a business glossary. Welcome to my channel where I put the lights on data and also cover different data topics and explain terms such as the one in today's video where I'll address the business glossary. I'll explain what it is, why companies should invest in one, and what a business glossary should contain. Please watch until the end because I'll conclude with 3 important takeaways. So what is a business glossary? Let's bring on some slides for this one. A business glossary is a collection of business terms with their unique definitions and other useful related information. 3 keywords here: business, unique, and information. So we're talking about business terms, business language, business verbiage. We're talking about having a common place, a trusted source of information where anyone can go to and understand business terminologies and even other relevant information around these terms. Things that provide us with better context of their meaning and usage. And we'll see some examples later on in this video. Please hit the like button if you agree with the definition, and if not, please let me know in the comments what your definition is. You know what? Let's take an example. The sandwich. Oh, I'm getting hungry just by looking at it. So what is a sandwich? It's a meat or poultry filling between 2 slices of bread, a bun, or a biscuit, at least according to the USDA. So let's ponder on this a second. Technically then, a grilled cheese sandwich is not a sandwich, at least to the USDA, because the USDA only covers the labeling of meat, poultry, and egg products, whereas the FDA kind of handles everything else. Why do we care about this? Well, because if you're a data scientist and you need to do a project that's relying on data sets on sandwiches, which data do you include in your analysis? If you're a business intelligence developer and you need to develop a report on, your company's sandwiches sales against the industry, which data do you include? Do you include data on grilled cheese sandwiches, or do you leave that out? It really depends on your company's definition of sandwich. And maybe your definition of sandwich is completely different. You see, I think we all come in with these assumptions based on our life and work experience and invariably bring them into the workplace without always validating these assumptions. And maybe we're less likely to make a wrong assumption on what a sandwich is, but there are plenty of business terms that also seem obvious what their meaning is, only to find out that that's not the case, at least in the context that we're working with, maybe in our specific company or even in our specific department. For example, a customer. Ask 3 different people in your company how they define what a customer is, and you'll probably get 3 different answers, if not more. Making assumptions on meanings of business terms such as customer, sale conversion rate, credit, CPC, you name it, is what creates certain challenges in the workplace. Challenges such as incorrect data analysis, invalid reporting, inconsistent data pools, and overall bad decision making, just to name a few. The message here is that wrong assumptions happen and meanings of business terms are not always known, especially when you're entering a new industry, but also when you're switching organizations or even departments within the same organization. So you need a business glossary. You need this collection of business terms with their unique definitions and other useful related information. And instead of having to debate about which one of these 3 definitions you should go for, you just refer to this trusted source of information that anyone from your organization can access, and you go ahead and you understand really what is the consensus of what customer means, which in this case is the recipient of a good, service, product, or an idea obtained from a seller, vendor, or supplier by a financial transaction or exchange for money or some other valuable consideration. And this is just one example. Of course, your own organization would probably define customer in a different way. So already I think you see some of the benefits that a business glossary can bring. But let me tell you a few more. Okay, so I think we've already covered that it facilitates a common understanding of the proper meaning and usage of business terms. But it also improves communication between employees, different departments, and even between the organization and other third-party entities. Also enhances training and onboarding for new and existing employees. It establishes ownership and sustains data stewardship. It increases trust in data and information by not leaving room for assumptions to be made on business terms. And improves productivity and timeliness of the decision-making process. How many meetings did you have to go through to define customer when a report had to be developed, or a new online form, or a prediction model, only to repeat that process again at a later time or for a different project? Plenty, I'm sure. And if it wasn't you, I'm sure it was at least one of your colleagues that had to be involved with coming up with these definitions over and over again. I encourage you to check out this article on the 6 benefits of a business glossary if you'd like to learn more. Having this commonplace, this curated artifact of business terms and their definitions, and of course, other useful related information, helps with all of this. I know, I keep mentioning other useful related information. What am I talking about here? A good business glossary doesn't just have the business term and its definition, but a bunch of other attributes as well. Foundational attributes are needed to create a strong business glossary and to increase its usability and user adoption while making it easier to maintain. The secondary attributes, well, they still offer value, but they're not really key to include on your first iteration of your business glossary. So the foundational attributes should be included in that first iteration of your business glossary. Why the first iteration? Because your business glossary will evolve over time. Let me give you some examples of the foundational attributes. Status would be one of them. Is it published or approved or still in draft mode? There are actually quite a few options that you can have. What about the owner? What about the data steward? Let's record those too. Are there synonyms or acronyms used for this term that one should know about and could also search for and get the same results? This is quite important because sometimes words that we think are synonyms are not synonyms in the context of a particular organization. For example, customer and client might not mean the same thing. Okay, let's move on. We can also have some sort of a taxonomy to categorize our business terms for the purpose of increased usability, better reporting, privacy and security considerations, and so on. I think it's also important to note the date when the contents of the business term were last updated, as well as the source of its definition. In the case of our sandwich definition, is it based on the USDA definition or the FDA, or neither? What about those secondary attributes? Well, we can have things like usage description and examples to kind of add in further context to that definition and explanation. You could have a calculation rule if we have a business term such as a cost per click. Maybe it's privacy classification, any related business terms to enhance our usability, the policy that it relates to. You can also have an attribute where you're recording notes and journal comments. I think usually it's a good idea to kind of add in more context, though there are plenty of other options. I've seen organizations with more than 50 attributes for a term, others even in the lower 100. So there are definitely a lot of options there. Now that you know what a business glossary is and what it's good for, let me leave you with 3 important takeaways. Now, I think that a business glossary is one of the most important deliverables of a data governance program, and really one of the most important and useful artifacts within an organization. Again, at least in my opinion. But it also needs to be done right. It needs to be adopted by its end users and sponsored and cheered by upper management. I encourage you to check out the Business Glossary online course and learn the step-by-steps on how to implement an easy-to-use and efficient business glossary that users will adopt and management will praise. The course has about 5 hours worth of video content and templates that you can go through at your own pace and just revisit as many times as you need to. You'll learn how to build a business case for it, get the best practices for creating unambiguous and consistent definitions, and of course, what the standards to put in place. I'll go over the details on the foundational and secondary attributes and how to best use each one of them, how to manage the life cycle of a term, how to build, improve, manage, and fund it, as well as productivity hacks and other useful tips. And yes, there are templates too, as I mentioned. But let's move on to the other two takeaways. What I want you to remember is that the Business Glossary really contains business language. So this artifact is controlled and updated by the business, although facilitating the updates and management of the Business Glossary can often fall to the data governance team, potentially in collaboration with IT for certain pieces. Lastly, to be at its most effective, a Business Glossary must be readily and easily accessible within your organization. And of course, it goes without saying that it must be populated with meaningful terms, and there should be a process to keep the terms up to date as your business changes. And let me wrap up with the fourth takeaway here. A Business Glossary is not a data dictionary, and it's not a data catalog, and it's not a business dictionary. But let's go over that in the next video. And lastly, it's not the same thing as these terms either. In the end, maybe it doesn't matter so much how you're naming it, but rather how you're defining it and using it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe as I'm adding a new video each week. Thank you.